This video is to let people out there know who are disabled or have been disabled, uh, especially veterans. If you're targeted, you may or may not know the reason why you're targeted. Um, in my case, it appears that things started when people broke into my house in Flint 20 years ago when I was deployed. Um, and that was the point that they were very clever because I was deployed. Somebody was maybe using my identity. Um, but the real hard stuff, like the hardcore identity theft, the using my social security number and everything for credit cards or intercepting credit cards. All of that started when we came back to mid Michigan from overseas. And of course, it got worse when the HUD-VASH caseworkers, because there was two involved. Actually, they should have both been fired. Um, the guy that was with her, that gave away the turkey to the racial extremist, he should have been fired too. In addition to his coworker, they always came together. That's why I think they're sleeping together or something, sleeping with each other, because that's normally not how HUD-VASH rolls. Caseworkers go out individually unless they have an intern, in their practicum. Um, there's the ums again. But they always came together, these two. And when the one on the phone promised, to repay everything that I would spend the first few months while they sorted out the secondary funding, that she would make sure that the VA repaid me, which was a lie. That's what caused the I guess we could call it the hardcore financial damage, in addition to, you know, stolen clone cards, stolen or cloned, um, and also the hacking of my dashboards, the hacking of virtual cards. At least two of my credit cards the past 10 years have also had a virtual card, and those were hacked apparently too. A whole bunch of stuff. But this video is not about me. It's about trying to have a nest egg set aside or borrow money from somebody that you trust and that trusts you and won't be convinced to join in retaliation against you if it takes time to pay it back. Or maybe the kind of person that just gives to somebody out of their surplus. We used to do that. Just give. I don't want to be paid back. Especially to friends, neighbors. Because your neighbors are your extended family in today's world. More or less depending where you live, but they are your extended family. And the more remote you get, the more rural you get, the less neighbors you have. When your house is burning down, if your neighbors hate you, they're not going to run to pull people out of the house. All they're going to do is call the fire department. That's the difference between family, neighbor as family, and neighbor as just somebody that lives next door. But that being said, yeah, have some kind of a nest egg set aside, because what I've found between VA and disability, people, if they can't find somebody internally, they will steal your mail. Our local post office is known. People have stolen my mail now for, um, shoot, both both of the post offices that handle the places we've lived. They all know, and they give me the phone number for a stupid call center. Especially, it's damaging when they steal the mail that's connected to a VA claim. That's very damaging. Or when people are messing with your dashboard with VA.gov and My Health Vet, specifically VA.gov, because that's where the intake center posts information about your claim. And they don't send you stuff, it's all through the mail, but you can upload stuff. But when people are messing with that website, then it causes a lot of problems for you. Or again, like I said, if they can find somebody locally, because every local VA has a C&P office. Every single local VA. And mine told me that I can't have copies of the last examiner's. I think she looked at 7 or 8 issues. They refused to give me copies. They said, "Oh, you have to do you got to go and request it from your record. It's not on your record. It's a completely different department. This is VBA, and they give you the phone number to call, which is another stupid call center that locally is serviced by the same call center that handles most other stuff dealing with call centers in my area, at least with my accounts. I always get the same people. I know I used to work there. I know some of those voices. Albeit not as many as there are there now that were there when I was there, but every now and then I'll hear a familiar voice. And people, you can mask somebody's voice. You can even simulate a voice. They do it all the time here. Sometimes you think you're talking to a property manager or you think you're talking to a social worker or something, and you're not because their intonations will change, their attitude will change, their entire demeanor will change over the phone. That's how you know you're dealing with the simulator. It's not the same person. Generally, when people communicate, they're pretty consistent. And if you have a trained ear for stuff like that, I mean, I have a pretty good ear. I'm not professionally trained. People that I've met in life train me, and I train myself. But I have a fairly good ear. I can recognize accents most of the time, and I can identify if I'm talking to the same person or not if they have the same voice. Generally, people will make mistakes. If they can copy somebody's voice, they may do a great job, but they can't continue it for a long period of time. They'll make mistakes, just like with the simulator. If somebody's always very soft spoken and they're using a simulated voice, they found a way to grab somebody's voice from the web and put it on their simulator. And people, you may not believe this stuff is true, but just think about bank accounts where you give voice identification. That's a voice simulation. Oh yeah, all you have to do is call and say your name and your social security number. It will open your account for you. That's voice simulation. Voice simulation and voice recognition is the same stuff. But anyway, so you'll find that that if people can't directly stop you from doing something, and they can't find somebody who works within the agency, like we've encountered destructive people in HUD-VASH and MDHHS. Uh, People don't check IDs at the Social Security office, and where else? Oh yeah, I can't forget Michigan Works. I'm not saying all the people are bad here. I'm just saying that we've identified some that are bad, and we've identified groups, specifically 2 religious groups. One of them is racially motivated. Apparently, I caught their eye about 5 or 6 years ago because of some trouble that they made at a pro-life meeting in D.C. And they're very anti-Catholic. And so I posted about them. Well, apparently somebody, and I think I know who it is, somebody from the black community decided to organize against me and got them involved because apparently a lot of them live in mid-Michigan. That I did not know that. So, some of the people in this group target us all they can. Sometimes they remove their headgear, or they'll try to sound like, very Christian. Um, and by the way, they're not Jewish, they're not Muslim. It's a group the Southern Poverty Law Center has identified should be on the cultic watch group. But they sometimes you can't notice them unless you know their ideology, how they talk, how they like to name their children, things like that. Then usually you can identify them. And again, I'm not going to label a whole group as bad. Even SPLC admits that there's a few that nobody can understand why they're involved, but they are. They're not racist. They're not anti-Jewish. They're not anti-Israeli. They don't want to try to make their own version of Judaism. Um, stuff like that. They believe in equity and fairness and justice. These are the people that nobody can understand why they're involved with this group. But it could be as simple as lonely. I know somebody in my family that has always been, slightly conservative hippie, but is now involved with diehard Pentecostals, diehard Apostolics, diehard QAnoners. Somebody that doesn't fit with these people at all. But people get lonely, and they don't want to dig deep to what they're getting involved because it satisfies a need. And whenever something satisfies a need, and you don't want to analyze why the need is there, and if the person or group satisfying the need is really beneficial, then that's somebody that your emotions rule you. But that being said, try to have some kind of a nest egg. As I'm discovering with dealing with the VA and MDHHS as well, they will be as vague as possible about your benefits. They will try to. At one time, somebody tried to make me sign a promissory note that I would pay them all back. When in their manual, it stipulates if somebody is, trying to get some kind of VA disability or Social Security, that they can waive that. They could give them a waiver. The social worker, it's right in their manual. But I've had people try to bully me and say, "Oh no, you're going to pay this back." Um, you know, they're not a lending agency. They can't do that. Only a loan, a bank company, or a credit card company or something can do that. These are benefits. And this is a kind of it's a kind of bullying, is what it is. It's a kind of bullying. And people who are going on disability are not going to be rich. Even people I've known, several people in my life who get SSI and then they get their lump sum, they're not rich. This is not big money. And people say, "Oh, well, you could do a lifetime disability claim." You know how many of those are actually approved? The vast majority are denied. If somebody applies for SSI and is based on a lifetime disability claim, usually those, even when they're litigated, they lose. They'll say, "Oh, well, how come nobody ever applied? Oh, I had such and such, and my parents never applied, and blah, 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 blah." You've lived your whole life with this, and now you want to say it disabled you your whole life? The judge is going to find against you. And most of those cases, the people lose. So, to saddle somebody with debt, this is an issue I had with Mishta too, because it seems that in the beginning, and they're still trying to some Mishta housing agencies trying to bully even veterans that just get disability, that, oh, you got to pay the bulk of your rent because you're on disability. It says in their manual they have the discretion to go for a lower amount, number one, to not use the strictest sense of the calculation of client share for rent, or two, if somebody has just went on disability, like within a couple of months, they have the discretion to keep their rent share at zero so that they can have a tiny nest egg. And what people are doing is saying, oh, no, we're not going to do that. You have to go into family self sufficiency. What they're doing essentially is taking away that client's right to control their own money. So they have to open a bank account that essentially is like, what do they call that when you buy a home and you put an escrow account that the state or the housing agency is the signature. It's a co-signature account. It's like having a third-party payee. Again, I've talked about that before too. It's like having a third-party payee without a judge's order. It's supposed to be illegal. People should not be forced into family self-sufficiency. It's not even a high-interest bearing account. Let the people control their money. That way they can choose a money market or put it into a CD. Let them choose what to do with their money. Stop trying to take away people's authority and people's autonomy in favor of the state, especially when the state doesn't care. Which is also, why I'm making this video, just so again I can reiterate to people, have some kind of nest egg, because people, if you're being targeted, and if it's some kind of QAnon website, you won't even know. What I've found is QAnoners and Anons, remember, you have to be Anon to be a QAnon. People don't understand that. They don't function independently. You must be an Anon to get access to all the boards to become a QAnoner. They don't work independently. Anonymous is more of an umbrella group, which is why groups like some of the more radical Hebrew Israelite groups, they're part of Anonymous as well. And some of the white supremacist groups, part of Anonymous. Human traffickers, Backpage.com, Anonymous. Various pedophile narrative sites and picture sharing servers, Anonymous. It's an umbrella group. So that being said, just find a way to have your family protected. That way, if you're messed with during the disability process, during the process for VA disability, like mine, I have multiple issues. I spent a lot of time in the Middle East as a contractor and as military, but still, November until now, November, December, January, February, March, April, May, June. Now I'm at the rating step, but it's no guarantee I'll stay there. It's no guarantee. I've been to the, I think I've been to the rating step before, and they sent out a notice, they rejected everything without an examination. And then they sent me to an examiner for like 7 or 8 things of which I can't get the records. They're stacking the claim against me. And in the end, we still live in poverty. All I want to do is leave this place and put my other businesses that are on paper in reality, and do something with my business that's been sitting dormant for 5 years.